The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Okuda-san. Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Yes? Excellent. So my name is Ogi Redzic. I am Senior Vice President for Connected Vehicles and Mobility Services for Renault-Nissan Alliance. I hope by the end of this presentation you have a better understanding what that means. And certainly we'll have some time for Q&A where I can properly explain and answer any questions that you may have. Before we start, I wanted to share with you that even though I'm based in Paris, I spent a lot of time in Japan. I come here at least once a month, usually between 1 and 2 weeks. And half of my team is based here in Japan. So if you would help me please with moving the slides, Blanca. So today we wanted to give you some context. First, what is going on in the auto industry? Why is it so important that we do the connectivity, mobility, and autonomy right? So I'll spend some time talking about the why, if you will. Why are we doing things that we're doing? Why is it so important to get the timing right? Next, we'll talk about what we're actually delivering, what we're planning to build, what we are going to be building over the next few years, and ultimately what you're going to see in the market. And then the last part of this presentation, very short presentation, will be about how. So how are we actually going about doing all these things? And if you start to take a look at the landscape change, if you will move to the next slide, thank you. You could say that for the last many years, the auto industry has been focused primarily on the car. The vehicle itself was what most of the time was spent in car companies. We looked at the car as a piece of hardware, self-contained system that we focused on the driver and passengers, but primarily the driver. And what you journalists wanted to know about is how many horsepowers we had in a car, how much storage we had in a car, how fast the car could go. And those were the most important things. Obviously, that will remain important as we move forward. But what's going to become important as well is what kind of connected services we can bring together with our vehicles. And as we move forward into the future, we expect questions around autonomous driving to start dominating the discussion. How well is your car driving by itself? How much can you offload off of the driver so that the driver can do more interesting things with his time? But then when you take a step forward even more into the future, we believe that the mobility services will become the ultimate interesting topic in the car industry, in the industry of transportation. How can we move people and goods from one place to another in the most efficient way, in the safest way, and in the most pleasant way? So for us, when you look at the evolution of the industry, and I think this would be more or less the same if you talk to any car manufacturers, it is becoming more and more about services, it's becoming more and more about autonomy, and ultimately it becomes more and more about mobility as a service. If you move to the next slide. So when you, to quote our CEO, the future of the car of the future is electric, autonomous, and connected. Those are the three pillars we believe that the future ecosystem is going to be based on. The electric vehicles, the autonomous driving, and the connected vehicles. So first and foremost, we feel very good that in these three axes, if you will, in these three legs of a three-legged stool, we have very strong assets. So the things that we have built over time are here to help us build even more advantage in the future. First and foremost, we have a leadership position in electric vehicles. We've shipped more than 360,000, and clearly we intend to continue taking this leadership forward. On the autonomous driving, as you may have heard from us before, we intend to launch 10 autonomous driving vehicles by year 2020 for the Alliance. And not too long ago, you witnessed the launch of Serena in Japan, where Nissan has introduced the first 80 vehicles into the market here. We have plans to introduce 82 and then the following version of autonomous driving by year 2020. And then on the connected car vehicles, we have done a lot already to start consolidating on a single platform. And I'll talk more about the importance of this. I think this is probably the most important step in what we need to create for the Alliance. Next slide. So this is a little bit on the context, right? Why are these things important? Why electric cars are important? Why connected cars are important? And why autonomous cars are important? And I wanted to share with you in very few slides what are we actually doing next. But before we do that, if you move to the next slide, we wanted to first tell you that we have been the pioneers in this space. This is not something that Renault and Nissan are just encountering for the first time. As a matter of fact, Nissan was a pioneer in connected vehicles. Back in 1997, almost 20 years ago, launched the first version of car wings. Many of you may have not even been in this industry at the time, and this was definitely something that was, I would say, ahead of a time and ahead of competition. On Renault's side today in the market, we have very successful systems called R-Link. We have R-Link and R-Link 2 versions of it. And then on Nissan side, you're probably familiar with our systems called Nissan Connect and Infinity in Touch. Both systems getting very good praise and very successful in the market. So this is the state of things today. So we have these systems in the market, and now we're going to the next step. And what is the next important step for the Alliance? If you move to the next slide. First and foremost, what needs to happen, and we're in the process of building, is a single common back-end platform, single common cloud platform for all the Alliance vehicles. This is a very big undertaking. This is something you may have recently seen from us. We're partnering with Microsoft to build something that's very unique and very specially tailored for the Alliance needs. So this common back-end, which you see here, Alliance Connected Car Platform, is critical. If you get the data from all of our vehicles into a single place, it allows you to much easier run analytics and learnings about how our systems are performing in the real world. It allows us to easier secure the data from all the vehicles that we have out there because we know they're all following the same protocols and they're going back into the same back end. It also allows us to build one set of services that can run across entire fleet of Renault and Nissan vehicles. So that's on the cloud side. On the vehicle side as well, we're currently developing a single platform that would work in all Renault and Nissan vehicles. Again, it's not only enough to have a common cloud piece, it's very important to have a common vehicle piece as well. So the set of services that we developed can run the same way in a cloud, the same way in a vehicle for any of the cars that we launch in the near future. When you think about modern systems, they all have three components. They have a vehicle component, they have a mobile component, and they have a cloud component. And we're spending a lot of time now to standardize on the vehicle component, on the cloud component, so that we can build consumer services that can and will be brand specific, while we'll be leveraging the same front end in a vehicle and the same back end in the cloud. Obviously, all of this is being done with the most important person in mind, and that's our customer. We certainly expect that our customers will be able to move from vehicle to vehicle, and we expect that they will be able to get the same types of services. We expect that the customer of ours, a family, a husband and wife, may be able to share with each other digital keys, and that they can really customize the vehicle for each other's needs depending on what car they want to drive in a particular day. So having the back-end system that allows us to do this is paramount, and that's something we're focusing our energy on. And then you may ask, okay, so now you have these enablers in place. You have built a common vehicle platform, you will have built a common back end, and then what next? Well, what comes next, if you move to the next slide, is that we have a set of services, combination of a number of services that we're planning to deliver over the next few years. These services fall into seven different categories, and I wanted to share with you these categories just so you get a little bit of an understanding as to where we're going. First and foremost, connected assistance. So this gives you support every step of your car life and in case of emergency, and there are some examples of these services that you can see here. These are not commitments, these are just examples of what you should be able to see with the set of services we're delivering. The second group is better routes, to give you a smooth route from home to destination. We have some example here in door-to-door navigation. What that means is that you have some of the experience on mobile phone. When you're in pedestrian mode, you get into the car, you transfer the route, you get out of the car and walk or take a train to the rest of your destination. The next big topic for us, enjoyable journey. In general, you see all of these services are focused on good experience within the vehicle. We really believe that as a car company, our focus needs to be on creating vehicle-centric services. So services that the customer can get only through our vehicles. So enjoyable journey, for example, is tied to having fun during your day trip and staying connected with your friends and family, which is obviously what most of us want to do on a daily basis. The fourth category is a new way to travel. When we enjoy travel experiences through easy car sharing and parking. An example of this is ability to share a vehicle between two people that own the car. The next big category is safety and security. That's always very important. When you can ensure that your passenger, yourself, and your car are always safe. Next topic is car life management. When you can check your car health. Clearly you have many use cases for this. Remote maintenance, predictive maintenance, being able to get information about best insurance based on your driving habits. Those are all important things for us. And finally, the topic of car remote control is quite important. Ability to remotely unlock, lock the car, open the trunk, start the car, gives you ability to remotely manage your vehicle from your mobile phone or from home. So again, these are just some of the examples we wanted to share with you, but you can see that these 7 categories are the key categories where we're developing our product. Next slide, please. So I want to spend the last few minutes of my prepared slides just to explain to you how we're going about doing all of this, right? So we have obviously big aspirations. We have started the project. We're building things. But I think you wanted a little more clarity as to how we're actually going about doing this. So if you move to the next slide. We wanted to share with you the structure of the organization and how we're going about doing this. Obviously, both Renault and Nissan, prior to my arrival, had a number of people, hundreds of people working on these topics. So what we have done since I came on board is we have said to the alliance, to both Renault and Nissan, that we needed to bring some additional skills into the company. We had very strong skills on IT and on the vehicle. But as you know, the automotive industry is going through the change that I previously described, and we felt we needed to reinforce ourselves, and reinforce ourselves primarily with the skills around cloud, analytics, data analytics, mobile software development, as well as machine learning. Those are some of the important categories for us to enhance. And as such, we went about, we're on a journey right now to attract up to 300 additional people into the alliance that will help build these solutions for both Renault and Nissan. To be very clear, everybody that works in this organization, Alliance Connected Vehicle and Mobility Services, works for both companies. The systems that we develop in this group, in these 900,000 people that work on this, are all being developed for benefit of both Renault and Nissan. It's a joint development effort. And the new people that we're introducing into this team are going to be focused on topics of cloud, so developing best cloud services, developing connected services in general, developing mobile applications, and then developing analytics. And in order to do this, we have already acquired a company in France called Silpheo that brought about 40 engineers into this new organization. And we're obviously looking to both hire. We've already done a number of hires as well. And looking for potentially other inorganic way to grow our team, whatever is consistent with the strategy that we put in place. I would also say that this is not enough. We feel very strongly that no company can build everything themselves, nor should we try. We're actually known as a company, both companies, that know how to partner. The alliance itself is a proof point of that. And we feel that with the right partnerships with the tech companies, the world that I come from, we can actually accomplish much more than if you try to build everything in-house, or even with our traditional suppliers. So the partnership with Microsoft that we have recently announced is an example of type of a partnership we expect to have more and more as we move towards the future. Microsoft has some amazing cloud capabilities, so it wouldn't make much sense for us to build those capabilities ourselves. Microsoft also has a number of very interesting technologies that we, together with them, can find a way to introduce into the vehicle. And you can stay tuned and you'll see more of this being announced in the coming months. And then Finally, Microsoft has open libraries on Azure Cloud where we can actually benefit from, for example, machine learning libraries that they've enabled so that our engineers can create very customized software used for our use case, however, leveraging all the capabilities of the open platform that Microsoft Azure has. So we feel very, very good about this relationship, which is early, of course, but we've already have a number of proof points with Microsoft. So you will see, as we continue to develop this platform, you will see how this finds its way into the market. So I will maybe just want to say one more thing about this structure that we created. We have people, I expect to have roughly 150 people in Japan, about 150 new people in France. And these people are going to be very much integrated into the activities of Renault and Nissan. However, we do realize that the skill set that these people will have are also going to require that they have an environment which would allow them to attract and quickly recruit new talent. So for that, we actually are planning to have an office, and we already started it, in Tokyo itself. So the same way that in France, we're planning to have an office in more Paris area. So closer to the city, closer to the where the current developers and engineers are sitting. And here we picked Nakameguro area in Tokyo. So if we move to the next slide before I take on the questions, just to summarize. So why are we doing all this? Well, we're doing all this to become a leader in the new area of disruption to the automotive industry by dealing with the fundamental changes happening now, and they'll be happening in the near future. What we want to do, and you saw that on my very first slide, I didn't spend much time on it, is we want to provide connected mobility for everyone. So the unique thing for the Alliance is that our focus is not on premium only. Our focus is providing the same set of services for everybody. And we have many proof points on that already. Obviously, electric cars that we're building are priced so that many more people can afford it. The connected services that we're building are going to work across the entire range of our vehicles. And electric cars that and the autonomous technology that we develop is going to work on at least 10 models by year 2020. And finally, when you look at how we're going to go about it, we're going to combine our expertise in these three core enablers in electric, in autonomous, and in connected. And we're going to hire people, we're going to hire new people, we're going to leverage great engineering teams that we already have in place. But most importantly, we're also going to partner with tech companies that can help bring some of their latest advancements into the vehicle. So on that, I would like to thank you for your time and open it up for questions.
はい、じゃあ、質疑応答に移らせていただきます。
We now move on to the Q&A. Those of you who have questions, please raise your hand and identify yourself and your affiliation before going into the question.
Sean McLean from the Wall Street Journal. I think a lot of what you talk about is parallels, obviously, in the smartphone industry. So I was wondering if you could extend that a little bit and talk a little bit about how you see Nissan and the rest of the Alliance playing in a sort of competitive connected car industry. Do you see yourselves as more of building an ecosystem perhaps like Apple does, or building a more open system like perhaps Google does? And secondly, and I think perhaps more interestingly, how do you plan to distinguish luxury brands from your mass market brands when you're talking about connected services?
Yeah, so to answer the first question, I'm not sure the parallel, I come from the mobile industry, so I'm not sure the parallel is identical in this world because the object itself is much more powerful and much more intimate and much more personal than the smartphone is. But you're absolutely right. You could draw some parallels. One of the parallels is operating system. Are we going to, as an industry, standardize on an operating system, and is that operating system going to be open? I think some of those questions are not answered yet for the industry in general. I want to talk about Renault-Nissan here. But what you can see from what I've presented already is that we believe that at least all of our vehicles need to have a standard platform that developers can easily develop to. So going into, rather than having a single solution for Infiniti, single solution for Nissan, single solution for Renault, single solution for Datsun and whatnot, We really are trying to create a common layer, and then through services we can and intend to differentiate between the premium and low end. So the same hardware, the same back end, and then set of services, obviously the CPUs in these different CPUs and memory will be different depending on the grade of a vehicle, but at least we will have a common set of APIs. For me, this is probably the most important thing, that we standardize on APIs so that when we write something on a back end, we can really count on it working in front end. And then there will be some services, let's say one day we decide to do something that's very GPU intensive, so we need to have a GPU in a vehicle, if there is a special service. Maybe that will not be in a low-end cars, it will be on Infinity and some other high-end vehicles, but at least we know that when we develop it once, it can run on all Infinity cars at least. I hope I answered your question, Sean.
Martin Colling, German Financial Daily Handelsblatt. I'm a little bit, I'm interested in the time frame. You showed us these 4 stages. Now the car, and then what was it?
Connected services.
Connected
first,
service, and so on and so on. Autonomous drive, and then mobility services. What is the time frame you are thinking of?
Well, first of all, I don't know if you saw on that slide. Do you mind putting it back on? That's towards the beginning. Please note that they're not one after the other, which you saw what we tried to depict in that slide, that actually the era of connected services has started a while back, and that we're already in the era of autonomous as well. Mobility services has started too. We just think that the dominant discussion when it comes to technology is going to move more towards that particular area. Mm-hmm. So that in 2016, obviously we're already very much involved in connected car and the autonomous. But when you think autonomous, the time of full autonomous is probably still ahead of us. And the time of mobility services where you don't think about vehicle, but you think about mobility only, is in distant future.
Yeah, my question would be, how, when you say distant, what is distant for a person in the car industry? Then, of course, we always hear about we bring disruption to the car industry, or there will be disruption in the car industry. But I wonder, where will the disruption really be? I mean, Tesla also didn't really disrupt the car industry so far. You can't say to disrupt anything with 50,000 vehicles per day,
right,
per year. So where will the disruption actually be?
To be honest, we view this differently. We don't think that the core business of selling vehicles is going anywhere. We actually believe that that's a healthy business that's going to continue to grow. But the disruption may be that, especially in urban areas, you will have people consuming mobility in different ways going forward. It doesn't mean that the core industry is going to change radically. As a matter of fact, we expect the core business to continue to grow for many years to come. It is just that there will be a sliver, today it's just a sliver, of the market focused on mobility that is going to grow probably faster, and that is something that we want to address. But if you ask me, that this disruption is a strong word. It's disruption how we perceive the vehicle, but the actual industry itself, I think, is adjusting to the new technology, and we expect to continue to grow.
はい、次の質問ありがとう。じゃあ。
Next question, Hans.
Hello, Hans Greimel from Automotive News. I want to follow up on the timeline issue and maybe just get a little bit more of the nitty-gritty about when you think you'll have these 300 people hired and when you'll have the new backdoor or back-end platform up and running, and when you think you'll have the new services actually on the market for this new platform. And finally, one other question would be about the synergies that you can get from here. Obviously, you're pooling resources from both companies. If you had done this individually, if two companies had done this individually, compared to how you're doing it with both companies pooling the resources, how much savings do you think you can get through this program?
Okay, so many questions. I'll try to remember one by one.
Sorry
first,
about that.
First, your question was about how soon before we have additional 300 people, and I can answer that. The plan right now is to, by the end of next year, have the entire team staffed. But it doesn't mean that we wouldn't start building, and we haven't started building things before. We actually have, and clearly we're using contractors before we find all the right talent that we want to bring in-house. Your second question is about when you can expect to see some of the things that I've kind of pre-announced in connected services, etc. They're all being tied into the new system that we're developing that's going to find its place in the market. I cannot tell you exactly when because we haven't made a product announcement yet. So these types of announcements in both Renault and Nissan are being handled by brands, and we're going to make an announcement when the new system is going to be launched in which vehicle. So it's not too distant future. It's something that's being developed right now.
By 2020 timeframe?
Oh, definitely before 2020.
Okay.
Yeah. And sorry, your last question was around
About
synergies.
the
Yes.
synergies.
So, I mean, synergies, it may be very difficult to quantify today exactly how much in synergies you get from this. But when you think about, just logically speaking, rather than developing 3 systems, and you know these systems, infotainment systems are pretty expensive to stand up in car companies, we are developing a single one with variants. So again, we're developing a common set of services rather than developing 3 sets of services. And when we engage suppliers, we tell them we need a component that will work across our entire fleet. It's very powerful. So we really get the benefit of the scale when we're building a single set of connected services in the back end. Not just ourselves, what we're going to do ourselves, but also what our partners are going to build. And when we go to talk to, this is a common issue in the car industry, maybe it's not so obvious, but if you have many systems in the market and you want to engage a third-party developer to develop something for you, and you say, okay, great, you have access to our entire fleet. However, please know that we have 4 or 5 different systems in place. So essentially, they have to build 4 or 5 different solutions. That's something that we need to and are going to attempt to avoid at all costs going forward. One very dangerous thing in software, as you know, is to have too many, let's call them branches, when then you need to have a custom solution made for each one of those. And we would like to stick to a common platform as much as possible. I would like to really be religious about this.
じゃあ次、青山さん。
Aoyama-san, Asahi Newspaper, Aoyama. I have 3 questions. First question is as follows. With regard to Microsoft IT company, testing, testing, testing. This is English channel. Testing, testing, testing. English channel. Testing, testing. Okay. Asahi Shimbun, Aoyama is my name. I have 3 questions. First question. The IT companies like Microsoft, you are partnering with those IT companies going forward. And Mr. Gon said EV and autonomous driving, and this is the direction for the future. And if we pursue that direction, the vehicles will be commoditized, the commodity. So the mobility service, like a provider like Uber and Apple and Google, these companies will be taking over the core part of a business which is most lucrative, and car makers will be providing simply vehicles. Therefore, the leadership will be handed over to these IT companies, according to many people. What is your view about that? Second is about cybersecurity issue, and what kind of approach are you going to take to address cybersecurity issue? And third is Toyota and other mega automakers in Japan are also interested in this area, and they are quite aggressive in this area. So how do you view the move taken by these other Japanese car makers?
I think I understood your question. Maybe start one by one. So the first question was around mobility services partners, right? Ubers, Lyfts, DiDis of the world. And what is our relationship with them? I think, first of all, as a car company, we today deal directly with consumers. We sell vehicles directly to our customers through our dealer network. We expect that this relationship with consumers is an important one, and we intend to keep it in the future. We think that the future ecosystem hasn't really sorted itself out yet, and there's plenty of opportunities for us to both partners with some of the companies that you mentioned, or launch our own solutions should we choose to do so. It is not entirely clear which model is going to emerge victorious in the long run, and let's just say that we are keeping our eyes very close to this whole market and are very engaged in discussions with a number of partners in different regions of the world. We see a lot of disruption coming in the future, and one big disruption is obviously autonomous vehicles and the impact this will have in the world. We think that as an alliance, we have extremely well positioning here because of our strength in electric vehicles, and we think that the future of urban mobility is almost certainly going to be electric, simply because cities will likely demand that pollution be addressed quickly. Then the second thing is that we're very proud of our autonomous capabilities, right? So I think when you combine our strength in autonomous, our already established leadership in electric, and with connected capabilities that we're building, I feel actually pretty confident that we can have very, very good mobility solutions as well. Again, whether by ourselves or with partners is still to be announced. The second question was around cybersecurity. I mean, this is obviously anybody in my position from any automotive company is going to be one of the things that keeps them up at night the most. And we're building a strong team for cybersecurity. And then we have cybersecurity obviously already in place in both Renault and Nissan at the vehicle level and at IT level. But as you see this triangle that I keep describing of vehicle, mobile, and cloud, it is important to look in this entire system and protect it. And that's something we're focusing on these days. And finally, you also said something about other Japanese car companies and what they're doing. And while I never comment on what others are doing, I can tell you one thing. If something industry initiative that makes sense for our customers and for us, we will always gladly look at it and potentially embrace it. We believe that there's a huge value in standardizing things like maps, for example, or common traffic feeds, etc. And we would strongly endorse such an activity. When you look at what's coming as far as standards in the future, I think that us together with other OEMs would benefit from trying to standardize, for example, intake of vehicle data and do it in a standardized way. So while we can't discuss any individual opportunity or engagement with other car companies at this point, I can tell you that I'm certainly always very open to do something that makes sense for both companies. I hope I answered your 3 questions. Thank you.
はい、他質問ある方。
Next question. That person and the person at the back. My name is Park of IT Media. I have 2 questions. First of all, on map data that you mentioned, with regards to map data, there are some companies that are very strong, like the company you used to be with, Ogi, but the situation is not so advanced in Japan. So how do you view the prospects of standardization of map data? Secondly, when you say standardization of the platform, are you specifically having in mind Linux?
So 2 questions. First question about map data. I do believe that Japan would benefit from a single global standard. This is my personal opinion, and not developing something that's unique to Japan, because it will make our life as an OEM more complicated. We would need to develop 2 different subsystems to deal with 2 different sets of map data. Having said that, it's not like the rest of the world has a common standard yet either, so I think this is very much work in progress. But as an OEM, our message to the industry is very clear. We would prefer to have a standardized map data set that we can use anywhere our vehicles are sold. Not necessarily from the same vendor, but certainly the same spec. So again, we don't have to develop twice or 3 times. We don't live in a perfect world, and different countries have different regulations. We know there are some specifics per market, but if you ask me what our aspiration would be, it would be to have a common standard. And your second question was, remind me. Of the platform and whether it's Linux or not. Well, today when you look at what we have already said, that the system that we're introducing is going to be Geneva-based system. So in other words, yes, that's based on Linux. This is a platform in the car, and when you look at the cloud piece, that's obviously Azure-based. Thank you.
Yes.
Can you give us a breakdown of your team, your new team, especially the new hires? Because we know there are different skill sets that are needed for autonomous driving, whether it's mapping or cybersecurity or AI. And my second question is, how are you going to reorganize this team, this organization? Because Nissan has a research center in the Silicon Valley, Renault also has one, and you are going to build these two new offices in Paris and in Tokyo. How are you going to reorganize all those organizations?
Yeah, so I don't think I can share with you exact numbers of how many people in which group, but I can tell you the majority of people that we are hiring are building connected services, common connected services, and then we have pretty significant teams on data analytics and on the cybersecurity and system architecture. So at a very high level, you could say that the biggest group is going to be in connected services development, and then the second two will be around analytics and cybersecurity and system architecture. As far as the location and how this fits, first of all, maybe it wasn't very clear, but the autonomous driving development is actually not part of the scope of what I'm doing. So we have a separate team that's focused on autonomous driving. Asami-san is leading that engagement, and I'm sure he'll be speaking to you separately about his activities. Then you asked about Silicon Valley. We're very much engaged with Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley office and the work that they do, especially with the local ecosystem, is quite important input into the work that we're doing, and the number of POCs for next generation potential services are indeed coming from our research lab in Silicon Valley. We actually expect these open innovation labs that we're building in other parts of the world to also play a role. So we really want to have a healthy, lively ecosystem where the ideas could come in. But remember, one of the big challenges that we would have had in the past is finding a way for startups to easily develop something and test it in the car. And we're really trying to address this with a standardized and open platform for our vehicles. I cannot re-emphasize how important it is for us to achieve this.
次質問のある方。
Next question. Yes, the person at the back.
Yeah, and also I'm with the French business paper Les Echos. So you tell us you feel that you need to put your new staff in different offices in Nakameguro, which is super trendy, and somewhere in Paris where it's going to be trendy. So does it mean, I guess you understand that it's very difficult to generate innovation in those big Japanese and French entities. So what more do you want to do to create this startup spirit that you're going to need?
Well, location again is, and first of all, we want to have startup across the entire organization, so it's not limited to just these new sites that we want to open. But we know that in this, let's call it war for talent, the location is important, and this is one of the key drivers why we want to have an office here in Nakameguro, and we're starting one. So I think if I look at the trend in the United States, and I think it's pretty clear to me after living in Paris for 5 months, it's very similar in France, and I believe that it's similar here in Tokyo as well, is that you had a trend with large tech companies were out of city centers. I used to work for Motorola, which was out in suburbs of Chicago. Over time, that has moved into the city. You see in Silicon Valley now, all the new startups are in San Francisco. They're not in Silicon Valley, they're in San Francisco. That trend has started many years ago, but now it's really accelerated. And I certainly see in Paris that a lot of new ideas, new startups, interesting companies are really in city proper around Opera, etc. You're probably familiar with the area. So I hear the same about Tokyo, the Shinjuku and Shibuya. Those areas are really where the startup guys, the mindset, where they want to be. And I think we don't want to change the behavior. We don't want to force them to come to a location where they're not naturally leaning towards. That's why we want to make this easy for us to attract the best guys. We don't want to lose the best guys because they don't want to go to Atsugi. Let's put it that way. Follow up?
Just on the work culture, you've been in Nissan, you know people work from 8:30 to 10 at night. don't want to be, it's not a cliche, but it's super difficult for a company like Nissan or for your competitor like Toyota to create something new. So in the work culture, does it mean you're going to pay people differently? You're going to let them work more at home or at different hours? Do you feel that you need to do that to break the actual the lack of innovation that we have at the moment?
I certainly can't comment on the pay thing. As far as the hours, I'm nothing but impressed with the work ethics that I see. I don't think it's just Nissan. I believe, having worked in Asia before, I think it's the work ethics here is second to none. And I don't think that people who will be joining this team will be working less than people that are working here. I want people that will be super excited to spend 15, 16 hours a day if they need to at work. I don't want to demand that, but I certainly want them to be able to really enjoy their work. I think when you see successful companies these days, and when people really buy into the mission, and I think we can give them this playground of really changing the world of mobility. And if they embrace it, I think, and feel they can be part of this, which is what gets me excited, I would hope that this is going to drive them as well to put those hours. Not because somebody has a whip, but because they really, really want to change the future of mobility. And those are types of guys that I'd like to join us. And frankly, those are types of people that are reaching out. And we have plenty of people reaching out saying, hey, we want to be part of this. So, for me, this is it's not just another job. At least I don't view it that way.
Hi, my name is Kane Nagaki from Financial Times. I just have one quick question and then a broader question. You mentioned about the hiring of 300 people, but I just wanted, what's the size of your current team now? And then my second broader question is, there's already a challenge with the increased sharing of car components, but with this single platform that you're talking about to connect all of the vehicles, damage could be obviously deep and widespread if there is some kind of a malfunction or if there's a cyber attack. So I just wanted to ask, what kind of discussions are taking place as to who takes responsibility in these instances? So you mentioned about the technology partners, and there's obviously suppliers as well, but in this new era of connected vehicles, who takes responsibility in the end when there is some kind of a malfunction?
It's a good question. First, to answer your first question, which is the size of the team, well, roughly this is what we try to show here. There are already about 300 people in both companies working on the topic. So if you really put it together with the new team, we'll have roughly close to 1,000 people working on the topic. And obviously there are more people that are attached to it. These are people that are directly working on topic of connectivity. So engineers who have been assigned to topic of connectivity and working on infotainment system or telematics. You could really summarize it like that. But when I look at where this is going, obviously we have people from other teams that will be benefiting from connectivity that will want to participate in our activities. For example, people developing particular ECUs for engine or for anti-lock brake system, or they will benefit from the data that's going to be collected and processed on their behalf. So I would expect that they will have people that you could argue are connectivity people sitting in their own areas. And as far as responsibility, I think at the end of the day it's very simple. Buck will stop with my team, yeah. So we will be responsible, and there's no hiding behind that. Now, I would personally much rather have everything centralized and controlled so that at least we know when we're attacked, we can have a single center where we can monitor everything. If you have many, many systems in the market, it becomes infinitely more complicated. Maybe the impact is less, because when you get attacked, you only get attacked on one subset of your vehicles. But I think to be able to maintain and manage 5, 10 different systems is actually much harder than being focused on one big one.
Hi. この表すみません。ちょっと日本語ちょっと言葉足りなかったんですけど。
This is the approximate number. It's not a very precise number. It's approximately 300, 300, 300, so approximately 900. Next question. Kageyama-san and Higawa-san, in that order.
Disruption that this is the industry is going to experience. How game-defining or game-changing are the decisions your team's going to make as far as connectivity? You also said there was a core business that was kind of going to go unchanged. So I'm a little bit confused. Is this going to be an opportunity in the next 2 or 5 years to beat your rivals? And if you're also having common, what do you call it, standardized then wouldn't every company be offering basically the same kind of services? How are you going to differentiate yourself? How are you going to win?
Good question. First, the comment that I made about the core business. The core business is selling cars. And then that non-core business is mobility services, if you will. So not so much about technology in the car, because I feel like the entire industry needs to put new technology in the vehicle in order to be able to sell a car, right? So when I say core business, I really mean the business of selling vehicles, okay? And then when we talk about mobility services and shared mobility and all that, that is a new business, and that's an opportunity for us because we're not doing much in that space today. How are we going to differentiate? Well, it will be around services. What services do we put in the vehicle that are unique and particular for us? Obviously, I cannot publicly talk about some of these today because it's not a product announcement session, but you could have seen some, or you will have seen in the near future, some partnerships that will bring some special software and special applications into the car that will be unique to us. You will see some ways of some new services that I think will be unique to us for a period of time. But there's no, in tech industry, it's very hard to say we'll have something unique for a very long period of time. It's a little bit a matter of who's going to be there first and who's going to provide the most value to the customer. So quality of service at the right price point. So when we say connectivity for all, we really try to build services that will work across the spectrum of our vehicles. So it's not $3,000 option in the vehicle, it's something that's affordable for everybody.
You can't really do exclusive partnerships or anything like that then?
Oh, we could do some exclusive partnerships. We could do it, but partnership with Microsoft is not exclusive on either side, but we're working very closely together. So, the reality is in technology, when you are ahead partnering with somebody very much on an early project, you do have lead time advantage. And I expect that this will be the case in many partnerships if we do.
木川さん。木川東洋経済 I have two questions. Firstly, as you made an announcement last week, Renault-Nissan Alliance has now received Mitsubishi on board. And Mitsubishi has not been so aggressive in developing autonomous driving technology. However, this time around, Renault-Nissan is now merged with Mitsubishi. So in the area of a connected service and mobility platform, are you going to offer this kind of technology and services to Mitsubishi in the future? That is the first question. And also, in the future, in developing a partnership, and once again, Mitsubishi, there is a Mitsubishi Electric in the Mitsubishi group. So Mitsubishi manufacturers, and are you ready to join hands with Mitsubishi-related companies? And in the automobile autonomous technology and other areas, you are already working with Mitsubishi. So rather than mentioning a specific names, in what kind of areas would you like to expand partnership in the future?
Thank you for your question. Yeah, it's a very good question. Obviously, the Mitsubishi announcement just came out last week. The deal was just closed. And what I can tell you about Connected is that we are now embracing and looking at the capabilities of Mitsubishi, obviously offering to Mitsubishi in the future capabilities that we're building for the Alliance. And over time, I think decisions will be made what from what we're building in the Alliance, what we have been building in the Alliance is going to be applicable to Mitsubishi, and what from Mitsubishi side is going to be beneficial for us. To make it very simple, if there is technology that Mitsubishi has and they're willing to introduce into the Alliance, I will be more than happy to listen and see how we can benefit from it. And the other way around, just in the spirit of our Renault-Nissan Alliance, you would expect that we would be offering to our new full member of the Alliance access to the technologies that we're building for connected car, and hopefully that will help them as well. So again, we don't have any concrete plans at this point because this is a very fresh deal, but we're going to be looking into ability to share in the future.
はい、次質問ある方、じゃあ。
Hans, please then.
Hello again, Hans from Automotive News. Earlier in your presentation, you outlined 7 areas of connected services that you thought might prove as like individual kind of business units. And I was wondering if you can tell us which of those 7 would be like the first one to generate a revenue stream. And then in the long run, which of those do you think would generate the biggest revenue stream? This is all from the car maker's point of view.
Yeah, so these are, I wouldn't say these are businesses. These are all segments, logical segments from customer benefit perspective of the same connected services platform. And as far as revenue, really we haven't made any announcements at this point, at least, about plans for how much each one of the services that we will be building will generate. I can tell you that I believe some of these services will be just part of the vehicle package. Some of the services will be add-on that consumers will decide to whether they want to take or not. And then we want to, and I think the most interesting thing here is that these services are not going to be introduced just with new vehicles. Once you have a vehicle standard platform, you can introduce services deep into the lifetime of the vehicle. So development of a new service after 3 years after the vehicle has shipped becomes possible. So we're no longer tied to services that come only with new vehicles. I think that's important to know.
But you can't give a general idea of, for example, which of these has the biggest revenue potential?
No, not at this time.
Okay.
Not at this time. Because honestly, another thing that's relevant, that this market of services changes much quicker, so making predictions today for when the service launches is really not a thankful job. I would say anybody that tells you exactly what consumer is willing to pay for a particular service in the future, it's difficult to predict. What I haven't shown you here, these are examples of connected car services for consumers, because this is what I think you will be most interested in. But keep in mind that we're also developing a number of services for our internal customers, which is just as important, because we do want to improve how we do our logistics, for example, manufacturing processes, quality of our products. We want to use connectivity to improve how engineering develops subsystems in the car, because they'll be getting a lot more data from connected cars than they did in the past. So we can feed that into our production elements as well. So actually there's a huge element of cost savings as part of enabling connectivity.
We are running short of time, so we would like to end with 2 more questions. Patrick, followed by
Newspaper Frankfurter Allgemeine. I have 1 or 2 questions concerning this relationship, this partnership with Microsoft. Can you explain a little bit more what this partnership is really about? Is it about Nissan using the platform capabilities, the cloud capabilities of Microsoft? Or is it even that you work with Microsoft on specific services that you might think to deliver in future? And connected to that, you made the point that when you have this all alliance cars connected, that you have this huge set of data which helps you in doing analytical work and stuff like that. Would this mean that Microsoft would get access to this data, or how are you going to keep this data for yourself?
Yeah, so 2 questions. Thank you for the question. The partnership with Microsoft is much deeper than us just using standard Azure service. So they are indeed going to develop special things for us. And these things are all going to be connected car specific. So you could say that if there's an automotive extensions that Microsoft is building on top of Azure, they're being developed together with us. So that's the first question. Second question is the data that sits on Azure is our data from vehicles. We're custodians of the data. We're not data, depending on what kind of data we're talking about, because there's many different types of data. But first and foremost, vehicle data from how the subsystems in a car are performing is obviously something that stays with us. And the platform that they're building is primarily about connected car data. It's about performance of the subsystems and information that comes from ECUs in the car. So yeah, we have access to that data and it's sitting on Microsoft Azure just like many other companies do. And as far as I know, and I'm sure you know as well, this is completely a responsibility of the company that puts data there. Microsoft does not directly access that data.
Sakaki Bara of Asahi Newspaper Company. Thank you. I have two questions. First of all, in the area of artificial intelligence, the emotional engine has become a hot topic in the auto sector. The AI, along with the driver, will be pursuing a car life, and the AI will learn to become AI that is liked by the driver. In other words, the AI becoming emotional and learning how to be preferred by the driver. I think that kind of research is being done, but do you have a goal towards that direction? And if so, can you comment on this? Another point, you said a single platform is efficient. That's very easily understandable. But on the other hand, commonalization of components can lead to recalls. Once a firewall is broken, if it's only one common platform, maybe you would have to recall all of the cars on worldwide basis. Isn't that a danger?
So maybe I'll answer the second question first. Thank you for the question first. Is it a danger? Of course. I mean, you can say that if somebody finds a way to break this particular vehicle part and the system, the common system that we'll have in, that it could affect more than just one system. But as I said before, I think the benefits of having a single platform far outweigh the risk. And if we are really focused on protecting this, I mean, when you think about what you have in your pockets, it's one or the other platform. It's either Android or iOS. And it is a single platform that, if penetrated, would cause risk. So I feel like we need to hold ourselves to very high standard when it comes to security, but I still believe that a common platform is the best path forward for us. And I'm sorry, what was the first question?
AI.
Oh, AI. Yeah, AI is the... AI, when it comes to driving, again, is part of our research organization led by Asami-san. So Asami-san will probably be better positioned to talk about the intricacies of AI engine that we're building in research.
はい、ありがとうございます。ちょうど時間になりましたので。
Thank you very much. With this, I'd like to conclude the roundtable. We have documents related to the presentation today, so please pick up a copy on your way out. Thank you for gathering.
Thank you very much, everybody, for coming, and appreciate your attention and time. Thank you.